On Mother's Day, my daughter decided to travel with her mother-in-law, but before leaving she sent me a photo of them together at the airport with the caption, "Honoring the one who truly deserves love. I bought you a plastic flower." On the flight she had a surprise. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this and comment the city you're watching from. My name is Gloria, and I'm 57 years old. Today was supposed to be my day. Mother's Day. The one day of the year when children are supposed to remember the woman who gave them everything. Instead, I'm sitting in my kitchen, staring at my phone screen, reading the most cruel message I've ever received in my life. The photo shows my daughter Isla at the airport, arm in arm with Margaret, her mother-in-law. Both of them are smiling, looking radiant in their expensive clothes. Margaret's wearing one of those designer scarves that cost more than my monthly grocery budget, and Isla has on the diamond earrings I helped her buy for her wedding 3 years ago. The caption underneath the photo is what's killing me, honoring someone who is truly worthy of love. I bought a plastic flower for you. I read it again and again. Each time, the words cut deeper. A plastic flower. That's what 25 years of my life is worth to her. 25 years of sacrifices, of working double shifts, of going without. So she could have everything she wanted. My hands are trembling as I set the phone down on the kitchen table. The same table where Isla used to do her homework while I helped her with math problems after coming home exhausted from my second job. The same table where we used to have breakfast together before school, where I'd pack her lunch and make sure she had everything she needed. I remember when she was 7 years old, coming home from school crying because the other kids had fancy lunch boxes and hers was just a brown paper bag. The next day, I bought her the most expensive lunchbox I could afford, even though it meant eating ramen noodles for dinner for 2 weeks. Her smile when she saw it was worth everything, but that little girl who used to hug me tight and say, "I love you, Mommy," is gone. In her place is this woman who thinks it's acceptable to humiliate her mother on social media. The worst part is that this isn't the first time. For the past 3 years, ever since she married David and moved in with his family, Isla has been pulling away from me. At first, I thought it was normal. A young woman starting her own family, finding her place in the world. I understood that, but then Margaret started her campaign. It began with small comments. "Oh, Isla, you're so much more sophisticated now." Or, "I can see you've really grown into your potential." Always said with that sweet smile, but with an underlying message that was clear to everyone in the room. Isla was better now that she was away from me. Margaret lives in one of those gated communities where the houses look like small palaces. She's never worked a day in her life, inherited everything from her late husband, and seems to believe that money makes her a better person than the rest of us. She took one look at my modest apartment, my second-hand furniture, my clothes from discount stores, and decided I wasn't good enough to be part of her perfect family picture. I tried to fit in. God knows I tried. I bought new clothes I couldn't afford for family dinners. I smiled and nodded when Margaret would make passive-aggressive comments about how some people don't understand proper etiquette or how certain backgrounds make it difficult to appreciate the finer things in life. I watched my daughter transform before my eyes. The girl who used to call me every day started calling once a week, then once a month. The girl who used to invite me to everything suddenly had family-only events where I wasn't included. The girl who used to defend me against anyone who criticized me started agreeing with Margaret's subtle put-downs. Last Christmas was particularly painful. I'd saved up for months to buy Isla a beautiful necklace. When she opened it, Margaret immediately said, "Oh, how sweet. It's so nice when people try their best with limited resources." Isla didn't defend me. She just smiled awkwardly and quickly moved on to the next gift, but this Mother's Day message is the final straw. It's not just the cruelty of it. It's the public nature of it. She posted this for all her friends to see. For David's family to see, for the world to see. She wanted everyone to know that she considers Margaret more of a mother than me. I get up from the table and walk to my bedroom, where I keep the photo albums. 25 years of memories are scattered across these pages. Isla's first steps, her first day of school, her graduation from high school, her college graduation. In every single photo, it's just the two of us. Where was Margaret during the sleepless nights when Isla had a fever? Where was she during the teenage years when Isla came home heartbroken over some boy? Where was she when Isla needed someone to believe in her dreams? I was there. I was always there. I flipped to a photo of Isla at 8 years old, missing her 2 front teeth, grinning at the camera while wearing the princess costume I'd made for her school play. I'd stayed up all night sewing sequins onto that dress because I couldn't afford to buy one of the fancy costumes the other mothers had ordered online. "I love you more than all the stars in the sky, Mommy," she'd said that night as I tucked her into bed. Apparently, love has an expiration date. My phone buzzes with a text message. For a moment, my heart jumps, thinking maybe Isla has come to her senses. Maybe she realized how hurtful her post was and wants to apologize, but it's not from Isla. It's from my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who's seen the social media post. I'm so sorry. Honey. You don't deserve this. That girl doesn't know how good she had it. More texts start coming in. Friends, acquaintances, even people I barely know have seen Isla's post. The humiliation spreads through my social circle like wildfire. Everyone knows now. Everyone knows that my own daughter considers me unworthy of love. I sit on my bed, surrounded by photo albums and memories, and I finally let myself cry. Deep, painful sobs that come from somewhere so deep inside me that I didn't even know it existed. I cry for the little girl who used to think I hung the moon. I cry for all the sacrifices that meant nothing. I cry for the relationship I thought we had but apparently never existed, but as I sit there, something else starts building inside me. Something colder than sadness. Something harder than hurt. For 25 years, I've given everything to Isla. My time, my money, my dreams, my entire life. I've been the perfect mother, always putting her needs before my own. I've been patient with her selfishness, understanding about her distance, forgiving of her increasingly cruel behavior. Maybe it's time to stop being so understanding, maybe. It's time Isla learned what life looks like without someone who loves her unconditionally waiting in the background to catch her when she falls. The next morning, I wake up with swollen eyes and a headache that feels like my skull is splitting open. For a moment, I forget about yesterday. Then I reach for my phone and see 17 missed calls from Isla. I don't call her back. Instead, I make myself coffee and sit in my small living room, looking around at the life I've built. It's not much by Margaret's standards, but it's mine. Every piece of furniture has a story, every picture on the wall represents a moment that mattered. This apartment might be small, but it's filled with love. Or at least, it used to be. The irony is that Isla grew up here happy. She never complained about sharing a bathroom or not having her own walk-in closet. She never seemed to mind that. We couldn't afford family vacations to Europe or that her birthday parties were in our living room instead of some fancy venue. When did all of that stop being enough for her? I know exactly when. It was 3.5 years ago, the day she met David at that college friend's wedding. He seemed nice enough at first. Polite, well-educated, came from a good family. I was happy for Isla. She deserved someone who would treat her well, but David came with Margaret. The first time I met her was at their engagement party. I'd driven 2 hours to David's family estate, wearing the nicest dress I owned and carrying a gift I'd saved up for months to buy. The house was like something out of a magazine. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and more bathrooms than most people have rooms. Margaret greeted me at the door with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You must be Gloria, she said, looking me up and down like she was appraising a piece of used furniture. Isla has told me so much about you. I doubted that was true, but I smiled and handed her the gift. Congratulations on David's engagement. Isla is such a special girl. Yes, she is, Margaret agreed. She's really blossomed since joining our family. It's amazing what the right environment can do for someone. The message was clear. Isla was better now that she was away from me. During the party, I watched Margaret work her magic. She'd pull Isla aside for private conversations, introduce her to important people, and constantly reinforce how wonderful Isla looked, how much she'd grown, how proud everyone was of the woman she'd become. Your mother did her best with what she had, I overheard Margaret telling someone. But Isla has such potential. We're just helping her reach it. I spent that entire party feeling like an outsider at my own daughter's engagement. When it came time for speeches, Margaret stood up and talked about how excited she was to welcome Isla into the family, how she'd always wanted a daughter, how Isla filled a void in her heart. When they asked if anyone else wanted to say something, I stood up. I talked about watching Isla grow into a beautiful, intelligent, kind woman. I talked about how proud I was of everything she'd accomplished. I talked about how much I loved her. The room was polite but distant. I could see people looking at their phones, checking their watches, waiting for me to finish so the real celebration could continue. After that night, everything changed. Isla started calling less frequently. When we did talk, she seemed distracted. Like she had better things to do. She stopped asking for my advice about things that mattered. Instead, our conversations became surface-level updates about work and weather. The wedding planning was particularly painful. Margaret took over everything. She chose the venue, the flowers, the menu, even Isla's dress. When I offered to help, Isla said, "Thanks, Mom, but Margaret has it all under control. She knows about these things." I wasn't even allowed to host the bridal shower. Margaret insisted it should be at the country club, with her friends and Isla's new social circle. I was invited, of course, but I felt like a charity case they were being polite to. The wedding itself was beautiful. Expensive, elegant, perfect in every way. I sat in the front row, watching my daughter marry a man I barely knew, surrounded by people who saw me as an embarrassment she'd hopefully outgrow. During the mother-daughter dance, Margaret cut in halfway through. "I hope you don't mind," she said to me with that fake smile. "Isla and I have become so close. She's like the daughter I never had." I minded. I minded everything about it. But I smiled and stepped aside because I didn't want to cause a scene at my daughter's wedding. After the wedding, the distance between Isla and me became a chasm. She moved into David's family home while they house hunted, which meant she was living with Margaret 24 hours a day. Every day, Margaret had new opportunities to point out my shortcomings, to rewrite the history of Isla's childhood, to convince her that she deserved better than what I could provide. "Your mother loves you," I imagine Margaret saying, "but love isn't always enough. Sometimes you need someone who can really support your dreams, who understands your potential." The worst part was watching Isla believe it. My daughter, who used to tell me everything, started treating me like a distant relative. She'd visit once a month, always with David, always for a brief, polite visit that felt more like an obligation than a desire to spend time together. Last Thanksgiving was particularly brutal. I'd planned a small dinner, just the three of us, hoping to recapture some of our old closeness. Isla spent the entire meal on her phone, responding to messages from Margaret about their family dinner the next day. "We're doing the real celebration tomorrow," she explained without looking up. "Margaret always does such beautiful holiday tables. You should see the centerpieces she creates." I'd spent 2 days preparing that meal. I'd used my grandmother's recipes, the ones Isla used to beg me to make when she was little. But apparently, my grandmother's recipes weren't sophisticated enough for her new life. "Remember when you used to help me make the stuffing?" I asked, trying to reconnect with some shared memory. Isla finally looked up from her phone. "Mom, I was like 10 years old. Of course I thought box stuffing was good. I didn't know any better." That comment cut deeper than she probably realized. It wasn't just about the stuffing. It was about everything. All of our traditions, all of our memories, all of the love I'd poured into raising her, it was all just something she didn't know any better about. After that dinner, I started to understand that I wasn't losing my daughter to normal growing up. I was losing her to someone who was systematically convincing her that her entire childhood was inadequate, that I was inadequate, that she deserved to be embarrassed by where she came from. Margaret's campaign was working perfectly. She'd taken my confident, loving daughter and turned her into someone who was ashamed of me, but even after all of that, I kept hoping. I kept believing that somewhere inside this new version of Isla was the little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who used to make me Mother's Day cards with crayon hearts, who used to tell me I was the best mommy in the whole world. Yesterday's message finally killed that hope. My phone buzzes again. Another call from Isla. The 23rd one since yesterday. This time, I answer. "Mom." Her voice is breathless, panicked. "Thank God. I've been trying to reach you all night. Why haven't you been answering?" "I was busy," I say calmly. "Listen, something's wrong with my credit card. It's not working, and David's isn't either. We're at the hotel and they're saying there's a problem with payment. Can you call the bank for me?" I almost laugh. Even now, even after what she did to me yesterday, she expects me to fix her problems. "I'm sure you'll figure it out," I tell her. "Mom, this is serious. We can't check out until this is resolved. And our flight is in 3 hours. That does sound like a problem." There's a long pause. I can hear Margaret's voice in the background, demanding to know what's going on. "Mom, are you okay? You sound different." For 25 years, I've dropped everything to help her. For 25 years, I've been her safety net, her problem solver, her unconditional support system. Even when she stopped appreciating it, even when she started taking it for granted, even when she started treating me like an embarrassment. "I'm fine, Isla. I'm better than I've been in a long time." What does that mean? I think about the little girl with the missing teeth, the one who loved me more than all the stars in the sky. Then I think about the woman who posted that photo yesterday, the one who decided I was only worthy of a plastic flower. It means you're about to learn what life looks like when you don't have someone cleaning up your messes anymore. "What do you mean I don't have someone cleaning up my messes?" Isla's voice rises to a pitch I haven't heard since she was a teenager. "Mom, what are you talking about?" I'm sitting in my kitchen, perfectly calm, while my daughter has what sounds like a complete meltdown 1,500 miles away. For the first time in years, I'm the one in control of this conversation. "I sold the house, Isla." Silence. Complete, absolute silence. I can almost hear her brain trying to process what I just said. "You, what?" "I sold the house. Closed on it Friday. The new owners take possession next week." "That's impossible. That's my house too. You can't just sell it without telling me." I almost laugh at her audacity. Actually, I can. My name was the only one on the deed. You never contributed a single dollar to the mortgage payments, remember? But that's where I grew up. That's my childhood home. Yes, it was. The same childhood you've been so eager to distance yourself from. I can hear Margaret in the background, her voice sharp and demanding. What's happening? What is she saying? Mom, this is crazy, Isla continues, her voice shaking. You can't just sell our house because you're mad about a stupid social media post. This isn't about a social media post, Isla. This is about 25 years of decisions that led to that post. I don't understand what's happening. Where are you going to live? Where am I supposed to stay when I visit? The assumption that she'd still be welcome to visit after everything she's done almost takes my breath away. You won't be visiting, Isla. Not anymore. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. I hear David's voice now, asking what's wrong. I hear Margaret demanding answers. I hear the chaos of a perfect vacation falling apart in real time. Mom, listen to me, Isla says, her voice taking on the patronizing tone she's learned from Margaret. I know you're upset, but you're not thinking clearly. You're making rash decisions that you're going to regret. Just calm down and we'll talk about this when I get home. When she gets home. To the house that no longer belongs to me. To the life that no longer includes her. There's nothing to talk about, Isla. I'm done. Done with what? Done being your backup plan. Done being your safety net. Done being the person you only call when you need something fixed. That's not true. When was the last time you called me just to talk? When was the last time you asked how I was doing? When was the last time you treated me like a person instead of a service provider? She can't answer because we both know the truth. The credit cards you've been using, I continue, the ones that aren't working? I was the co-signer on those accounts. I removed myself on Friday. You can't do that. I already did. The car insurance on that BMW you're so proud of? I was paying for that too. Cancelled it yesterday. Your health insurance? Since you're still on my policy as a dependent, that's gone too. Each word hits her like a physical blow. I can hear her breathing getting faster, more panicked. Mom, you're scaring me. This isn't like you. You're right. The old me would have kept enabling you forever. The old me would have accepted being treated like garbage because I was so desperate to keep you in my life. But I'm not that person anymore. What happened to you? What happened to me? What happened was that I finally woke up. What happened was that I realized I'd been so busy being the perfect mother that I forgot to demand basic respect in return. I grew a spine, Isla. Something I should have done years ago. Margaret's voice gets closer to the phone. I can hear her clearly now. Let me talk to her. This is ridiculous. No mother would do this to her own child. That's when I decide to drop the bomb that will change everything. Isla, I say, my voice steady and calm, there's something else. You need to know. Something I should have told you a long time ago. What now? Her voice is barely a whisper. You're not my biological daughter. The silence that follows is so complete I actually checked to make sure the call didn't drop. What did you just say? I found you when you were 6 months old. Abandoned at a bus station in Phoenix. No note, no identification, nothing. Just a hungry, scared baby who needed someone to love her. That's not possible. I was 24 years old, working as a nurse at the hospital where they brought you. You'd been there for 3 days and no one had claimed you. The social workers were talking about putting you into the system. I can hear Margaret in the background, demanding to know what's being said. I can hear David asking if everything's okay. But Isla is silent, processing the truth that's turning her entire world upside down. I couldn't let that happen, I continue. So I filled out the paperwork to become your foster mother. 6 months later, I adopted you officially. I gave you my name, my life, my heart. Everything. You're lying. I have all the paperwork, Isla. The original police report, the hospital records, the adoption papers. I kept everything. Why are you telling me this now? Because you need to understand what you're throwing away. You weren't born into my life, Isla. I chose you. Every single day for 25 years, I chose you. I chose to love you when your birth mother couldn't. I chose to sacrifice for you when I could have had an easier life alone. I chose to put your needs before my own happiness, my own dreams, my own future. My voice starts to crack, but I push through. And you've spent the last 3 years choosing Margaret over me. Choosing a woman who sees you as a trophy over the woman who saw you as a miracle. Choosing someone who loves what you represent over someone who loves who you are. I don't. I can't. You posted that picture yesterday, calling Margaret the one worthy of love. You bought me a plastic flower because you think that's all I deserve. But here's what you don't understand, Isla. Margaret doesn't love you. She loves the idea of you. She loves having a beautiful, accomplished daughter-in-law to show off. She loves the way you make her look good. I take a deep breath. But I loved you when you had nothing to offer except a smile and a wet diaper. I loved you when you were awkward and insecure. I loved you when you made mistakes and when you broke my heart. I loved you unconditionally, and you decided that wasn't worth anything. Mom, I'm not your mom, Isla. Remember? You made that very clear yesterday. Margaret is your mother figure now. Let's see how much she loves you when you don't have a trust fund to inherit, when you can't afford the lifestyle she's become accustomed to, when you're just another struggling young couple instead of her perfect success story. The phone is completely silent now. I can't even hear background noise. The house sale already went through, I tell her. The money is in an account you can't access. Your credit cards are cancelled, your insurance is terminated, and your access to my financial support is permanently revoked. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. You're an adult, Isla. You have a husband and a mother-in-law who think you're so wonderful. I'm sure they'll figure something out. You can't do this to me. I can, and I have. You wanted to honor someone truly worthy of love? Well, I've decided to honor myself. For the first time in 25 years, I'm putting my own needs first. I can hear her crying now. Deep, desperate sobs that would have broken my heart yesterday. Today, they just sound like the consequences of her own choices finally catching up with her. I gave you everything I had, Isla. My time, my money, my dreams, my entire identity. I built my whole life around loving you, and you decided I wasn't good enough. So now you get to see what life looks like without someone who loves you unconditionally waiting in the wings to fix everything. Please, Mom. Don't do this. Don't call me Mom. You made it clear yesterday that Margaret earned that title. Call her. I'm sure she'll help you figure out how to pay for your hotel room and get home. And with that, I hang up the phone after. I hang up the phone, I sit in complete silence for several minutes. My hands aren't shaking anymore. My heart isn't racing. For the first time in years, I feel completely calmed. I walk to my bedroom and pull out the box I keep in the back of my closet. It's an old shoebox, worn around the edges, filled with documents and photographs that tell the real story of how Isla came into my life. The story I've never told anyone, not even her. I spread the papers across my bed and stare at them. The police report from July 15, 1999. Abandoned infant found at Greyhound Station, approximately 6 months old, female. Appears healthy but malnourished. The hospital intake forms with my signature on them, volunteering to be Isla's emergency foster placement. The social worker's notes documenting my visits, my determination to adopt her, my insistence that this baby belonged with me, and the photographs. Pictures of Isla in those early days, so tiny and fragile, with huge dark eyes that seemed to hold all the sadness in the world. Pictures of her first smile, her first laugh, her first steps. Pictures of a love story that began the moment I held her in my arms and realized I would do anything to keep her safe. I was 24 years old then, working double shifts as a nurse, living in a tiny apartment, with no family nearby and no romantic prospects on the horizon. My life was simple, predictable, and completely my own. I could have stayed late at the hospital that night instead of volunteering to take home the abandoned baby. I could have let someone else fill out the foster care paperwork. I could have chosen the easier path, but when I looked at Isla, something inside me just knew. This was my daughter. Not by blood, but by choice. By love. By a certainty so deep that it changed the entire course of my life without a second thought. The adoption process took 8 months. 8 months of home visits, interviews, background checks, and endless paperwork. 8 months of falling more in love with this little girl who had been thrown away by someone else but who fit perfectly into my arms, my heart, my life. I remember the day the adoption became final. Isla was 14 months old then, toddling around the courthouse in a little yellow dress I'd bought specially for the occasion. When the judge signed the papers and said, "Congratulations, Ms. Martinez, she's officially yours," I cried so hard. They had to bring me tissues. She was mine. Finally, legally, permanently mine. From that moment on, I never looked back. I never wondered about her biological parents or wished things had been different. Isla was my daughter in every way that mattered, and I raised her as if she had been born from my own body. I worked extra shifts to buy her the best clothes I could afford. I read parenting books late into the night to make sure I was doing everything right. I took her to every doctor's appointment, every school event, every milestone. I was there for her first word, her first day of school, her first heartbreak, her high school graduation, her college acceptance. I never dated seriously because I didn't want to confuse her or make her feel like she had to compete for my attention. I turned down job opportunities that would have required relocating because I didn't want to disrupt her friendships and school life. I postponed my own dreams of going back to school for a nursing degree because her needs always came first every Decision I made for 25 years was filtered through one question: what's best for Isla? I never told her she was adopted because I wanted her to feel completely secure in her place in the world. I wanted her to never doubt that she belonged. That she was wanted, that she was mine completely. I thought I was protecting her from any feelings of abandonment or rejection. Looking back now, I realize that was a mistake. Not because she didn't have the right to know, but because she grew up taking my love for granted. She never understood that I had chosen her, that loving her was a conscious decision I made every single day. If she had known the truth, would she have appreciated my sacrifices more? Would she have understood that family isn't just about blood but about commitment and choice and showing up day after day, year after year? Maybe. Or maybe Margaret still would have convinced her that she deserved better than what I could provide. The phone rings, startling me out of my memories. I look at the caller ID and see David's name. I let it go to voicemail. 10 minutes later, it rings again. Margaret this time. I decline the call, then a text message from Isla: please answer the phone. We need to talk. I delete it without responding. Another call from David. Another voicemail I don't listen to. This continues for 2 hours. Calls, texts, voicemails, all increasingly frantic. I ignore them all. Finally, my phone stops buzzing. At 3 o'clock, there's a knock at my door. I look through the peephole and see Mrs. Chen from next door, holding a covered dish. I brought you some soup, she says when I open the door. I figured you might not feel like cooking today. Mrs. Chen is 73 years old and has lived in this building longer than anyone. She's watched Isla grow up, celebrated her achievements, and witnessed the gradual deterioration of our relationship over the past few years. Thank you, I say, accepting the dish. That's very kind. I saw that post, she says quietly. I'm sorry, honey. You didn't deserve that. I nod, not trusting myself to speak. You know, Mrs. Chen continues, I raised 4 children. 3 of them turned out wonderful. One of them broke my heart. But I learned something important. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for a child is to let them face the consequences of their choices. She pats my arm gently. You're a good mother, Gloria. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. After she leaves, I heat up the soup and eat it slowly, thinking about her words. I've spent so many years protecting Isla from consequences, smoothing over her mistakes, making her life easier. I thought that was what good mothers did, but maybe good mothers also know when to step back and let their children learn hard lessons. My phone buzzes with another text from Isla. I'm sorry about the post. I was angry and I said something I didn't mean. Please don't do this. I stare at the message for a long time. She's sorry about the post. Not sorry about 3 years of treating me like I'm an embarrassment. Not sorry about choosing Margaret over me at every opportunity. Not sorry about taking my love for granted while giving her affection to someone who sees her as an accessory. She's sorry she got caught. Sorry there are consequences. I delete the text without responding. Another message comes through. We're stuck at the hotel. Margaret had to put the room on her credit card, but she's furious. David's parents are fighting. Please don't let this destroy our family. Our family. She still thinks we're a family after everything she's done, but we haven't been a family for a long time. A family requires mutual respect, love, and commitment. For the past 3 years, it's just been me giving everything and Isla taking whatever she wanted while slowly cutting me out of her life. The final text of the day comes at 9 o'clock. I know you're angry, but this has gone too far. I'm your daughter and you can't just abandon me. I almost laugh at the irony. She's accusing me of abandonment when she's the one who abandoned our relationship the moment someone better came along, but she's wrong about one thing. She's not my daughter anymore. She made that clear yesterday when she chose to honor Margaret instead of me. She made that clear 3 years ago when she decided I wasn't good enough for her new life. The little girl I found at that bus station 25 years ago was abandoned by her birth mother. I rescued her, loved her, gave her everything I had. But somewhere along the way, that little girl grew up into a woman who was ashamed of where she came from and who she came from. Maybe it's time for her to understand what abandonment actually feels like. Maybe it's time for her to appreciate what she had before it's too late. Or maybe it's already too late. Maybe some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. I put the documents back in the shoebox and place it in the closet. Tomorrow, I start my new life. A life where I put myself first for once. A life where I don't wait by the phone hoping for crumbs of affection from someone who's decided I'm not worth loving. For the first time in 25 years, I'm not responsible for fixing Isla's problems. I'm not responsible for her happiness. Or her success or her future. I'm only responsible for myself, and that feels terrifyingly, beautifully free. I don't hear from Isla for 3 days. 3 blissfully quiet days where I can drink my morning coffee without my stomach knotting up, where I can watch television without jumping every time the phone rings, where I can actually sleep through the night for the first time in months. On Thursday morning, I'm watering the plants on my balcony when Mrs. Chen appears at her door. There's a young woman downstairs, she tells me. Been sitting in her car for about an hour, crying. Looks like you're Isla. My heart does a little flip, but I force myself to stay calm. Thank you for letting me know. I don't go downstairs. Instead, I continue watering my plants, taking my time with each one. These plants have been my companions through many lonely evenings. They deserve my attention. 20 minutes later, there's a knock at my door. Soft at first, then more insistent. Mom? I know you're in there. Please open the door. I set down my watering can and look through the peephole. Isla is standing in the hallway, and she looks terrible. Her hair is unwashed, her clothes are wrinkled, and her face is blotchy from crying. This is not the polished, sophisticated woman. Who posted that photo 5 days ago? Mom, please? I've been sitting outside for hours. We need to talk. I unlock the door but leave the chain on, opening it just enough to see her face clearly. What do you want, Isla? I want to come inside. I want to explain. Explain what? Her voice cracks. Everything. The post, the way I've been treating you, all of it. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix anything. I know, but please. Just give me 5 minutes. Let me try to make this right. Against my better judgment, I unhook the chain and step aside. Isla rushes in like she's been holding her breath and can finally breathe again. She looks around the apartment, and I see her taking in the empty spaces where things used to be. The missing photo albums, the packed boxes in the corner, the general sense that this place is being prepared for departure. You really sold the house, she says quietly. I told you I did. Where are you going to live? That's not your concern anymore. She flinches like I've slapped her. Mom, don't say that. Don't call me Mom. You made it very clear that Margaret has earned that title. Isla sinks onto my couch and buries her face in her hands. I was angry when I posted that. David and I had been fighting, and Margaret kept saying things about how I needed to stand up for myself more, and I wanted to hurt someone. So you chose to hurt me. I didn't think you'd see it. Everyone saw it, Isla. My neighbors, my friends, my coworkers. Everyone knows now that my own daughter considers me unworthy of love. She looks up at me, and her eyes are desperate. That's not true. I was just being petty and stupid. You know I love you. No, I don't know that. When was the last time you told me you loved me? When was the last time you called me just to talk? When was the last time you chose me over Margaret? She can't answer because we both know the truth. How did you get home? I ask. Margaret had to pay for everything. The hotel, our meals, the flights. She was really angry about it. I bet she was. Isla's voice drops to almost a whisper. She said some things. About you, about our family, about how this whole situation reflects poorly on David. What kind of things? She said that you were clearly unstable, that no normal mother would do what you did. She said it was probably for the best that I distance myself from you completely. I nod slowly. And what did you say? I didn't know what to say. I was so confused and scared, and everything was falling apart, and you agreed with her. Isla's silence is answer enough. Where are you staying now? I ask. With David at his parents' house. But it's not good, Mom. Margaret is treating me differently now. She keeps making comments about how I come from unstable stock and how David should be careful about what kind of influence I might have on their future grandchildren. The irony would be funny if it weren't so sad. So now that you don't have any inheritance prospects, she's showing her true colors? It's not about money. Isn't it? Think about it, Isla. When did Margaret start treating you differently? Right around the time she found out I'd cut off your access to everything. Isla wipes her nose with her sleeve, looking more like the little girl I raised than the sophisticated woman she's tried to become. I made a mistake, she says. I know I hurt you, and I know I've been terrible to you for the past few years. But you're my mother. You can't just throw me away. I'm not throwing you away. I'm giving you what you wanted. What are you talking about? For 3 years, you've been pulling away from me. You've been embarrassed by me, ashamed of where you come from, eager to distance yourself from the life we built together. You got exactly what you wanted, Isla. You're free from me. That's not what I wanted. Yes, it was. You just thought I'd always be here waiting for you to come back when you needed something. You thought you could treat me however you wanted because my love was unconditional. I sit down across from her, keeping my voice steady. But love isn't supposed to be unconditional, Isla. Real love requires respect, consideration, effort. It requires showing up for each other, not just when it's convenient. I can show up for you now. I want to make things right. Why now? Because your credit cards don't work anymore? Because Margaret is showing her true colors? Because you need somewhere to live? Because I realized I made a terrible mistake. You made many terrible mistakes. Which one specifically? She struggles to find words. All of them. The way I've treated you, the things I've said, the way I let Margaret turn me against you. You let her turn you against me because part of you wanted to be turned against me. Part of you was embarrassed by your childhood, by our modest life, by having a mother who worked as a nurse instead of hosting charity galas. That's not true. Isn't it? When was the last time you brought David here? When was the last time you invited me to dinner at your house? When was the last time you introduced me to your new friends without apologizing for who I am? She can't answer any of these questions because they all prove my point. I gave you everything I had, Isla. My time, my energy, my dreams, my money, my entire identity. I built my whole life around being your mother, and you decided it wasn't good enough. I never said that. You didn't have to say it. Your actions said it for you. I stand up and walk to the window, looking down at the parking lot where she must have sat in her car for hours, working up the courage to come upstairs. Do you want to know something? I ask without turning around. I don't regret adopting you. Even now, even after everything that's happened, I don't regret it. That little baby I found 25 years ago deserved to be loved, and I'm glad I was the one who got to love her. Then why are you doing this to me? I turn back to face her. Because that little baby grew up into a woman who forgot how to love me back. And I finally realized that I deserve better than that. I do love you. No, Isla. You love what I provide. You love having a safety net, a backup plan, someone who will always fix your problems and never judge you for making them. But you don't love me. You've made that very clear. She starts crying again, harder this time. Please don't say that. Please don't give up on me. I gave up on you the moment you decided I wasn't worth a real flower on Mother's Day. That was just a stupid joke. I didn't mean it. Yes, you did. You meant every word of it. You wanted to hurt me because it made you feel powerful. You wanted to show Margaret and all your new friends that you were sophisticated enough to mock your own mother. I walk to the door and open it. I think you should leave now. Mom, please. I have nowhere else to go. You have David. You have Margaret. You have the life you chose over me. Margaret doesn't want me anymore. She's been making it clear that I'm not welcome in their house much longer. And David. David is starting to see me differently too. Like maybe I'm not the person he thought he married. Maybe you're not. She stands up slowly, understanding that this conversation is over. What am I supposed to do? I don't know, Isla. For 25 years, I would have moved mountains to help you figure that out. But you made it clear that my help isn't valuable to you. She walks to the door, then turns back one more time. Is there anything I can do? Anything at all? I think about it for a moment. You could try learning to stand on your own 2 feet. You could try taking responsibility for your own choices. You could try figuring out who you are when you don't have someone else paying for your life. And then? And then maybe, someday, if you become someone worth respecting, we can talk about whether there's still a relationship worth saving. She nods, tears streaming down her face, and leaves. I lock the door behind her and lean against it, listening to her footsteps fade down the hallway. Part of me wants to run after her, to take it all back, to hold her and fix everything like I always have, but I don't. Because for the first time in 25 years, I'm choosing myself over her needs. And it feels terrifying and liberating. And absolutely right. 6 months later, I'm sitting on the porch of my new cottage in Asheville, North Carolina, watching the morning mist roll off the mountains. The house is small but perfect, 2 bedrooms, a cozy living room with a fireplace, and a garden where I can grow vegetables and flowers to my heart's content. I bought it with the money from selling my old house, and every morning when I wake up here, I'm reminded that this life is mine. No one else's needs dictating my choices, no one else's problems requiring my immediate attention, no one else's approval necessary for my happiness. I've started working part-time at a local clinic, something I never could have done when every spare dollar went to supporting Isla. The work is fulfilling in a way I'd forgotten was possible. My patients appreciate me, my colleagues respect me, and I come home each evening tired but content. Mrs. Patterson, my 79-year-old neighbor, waves from her garden. She's become a good friend over these past months, someone who knew nothing about my past when I arrived and who likes me simply for who I am now. Gloria. Come see what came up in my flower bed, she calls. I set down my coffee and walk over to admire the early spring bulbs pushing through the soil. Daffodils, tulips, crocuses, all planted with hope last fall, now emerging into the light. They're beautiful, I tell her. Funny how things can survive even the hardest winters, she says, giving me a meaningful look. Mrs. Patterson has a way of saying exactly what needs to be said without saying too much. Back inside, I check my phone for the first time today. There's a voicemail from an unknown number, but when I listen to it, I recognize the voice immediately. It's Isla. Hi, Mom. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to let you know that I got a job. It's just waitressing at a diner, but it's mine. I'm earning my own money for the first time in my life. Her voice is different. Quieter, less entitled, more uncertain. David and I are separated. We're living apart while we figure things out. Margaret, well, let's just say you were right about her. She made it very clear that I wasn't welcome once she realized I didn't come with a trust fund. I sit down at my kitchen table, still listening. I'm staying in a studio apartment downtown. It's not much, but it's mine. I'm paying for it myself, and I'm actually proud of that. There's a long pause. I know you don't owe me anything. I know I hurt you in ways I'm only beginning to understand. But I wanted you to know that I'm trying to become someone better. Someone who deserves the love you gave me for all those years. Another pause. I found the adoption papers, Mom. David's lawyer helped me get copies when we were going through our separation paperwork. I know the truth now. I know you chose me when no one else wanted me. I know you built your entire life around loving me. And I know I threw it all away. My eyes fill with tears, but I keep listening. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to want me back in your life. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I lost. I understand that you weren't the problem in our relationship. I was. The message ends there. I set the phone down and sit in my quiet kitchen, feeling emotions I haven't allowed myself to feel in months. Is this real change, or is this just desperation? Is Isla finally growing up, or is she just saying what she thinks I want to hear? I don't know. And for the first time, I don't feel the urgent need to find out immediately. Over the next few weeks, more messages come. Short ones, always respectful, never demanding. Updates about her job, her apartment, her attempts to rebuild her life from scratch. She never asks for money or help or forgiveness. She just shares her progress like someone trying to prove they're worth a second chance. One evening, Mrs. Patterson comes over for dinner. We've made this a weekly tradition, taking turns cooking for each other and sharing stories about our lives. You've seemed thoughtful lately, she observes as we clear the dishes. I tell her about the messages, about the choice I'm facing between protecting myself and potentially opening my heart again. What does your gut tell you? She asks. That she's different. That losing everything might have been exactly what she needed to wake up. But I'm terrified of going back to the old pattern. Of becoming the person who fixes all her problems and asks for nothing in return. Mrs. Patterson nods thoughtfully. You know, my youngest daughter put me through hell for about 10 years. Drugs, bad relationships, constantly asking for money. I finally had to cut her off completely. What happened? She hit rock bottom. Lost her job, her apartment, her boyfriend. Had to move back in with her high school friend's mother and start over from nothing. Did she blame you? At first, yes. But eventually, she realized that rock bottom was the best thing that ever happened to her. It forced her to figure out who she was when she wasn't depending on me to solve everything. Are you close now? Mrs. Patterson smiles. Very close. But it's a different kind of relationship than we had before. She respects me now in a way she never did when I was always rescuing her. And I respect her because she earned her way back into my life. 2 weeks later, I make a decision. I drive to the address Isla mentioned in one of her messages. It's a small studio apartment above a bakery in a working-class neighborhood. Not the kind of place the old Isla would have been caught dead in. I don't go up to her apartment. Instead, I sit in my car across the street and watch. At 6:30, she emerges wearing a simple black dress and comfortable shoes, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looks tired but determined as she walks to the bus stop. She's going to work. She's taking care of herself. She's not waiting for someone else to solve her problems. I follow the bus to a small diner on the other side of town. Through the window, I watch Isla serving customers, refilling coffee cups, clearing tables. She's not particularly good at it yet. I can see her struggling with the heavy trays. But she's trying. When her shift ends at midnight, I watch her count her tips carefully and put them in a small envelope. Every dollar matters now in a way it never did before. I don't approach her. I'm not ready for that yet. But seeing her like this, independent, working, taking responsibility for her own life, gives me something I haven't felt in months. Hope. 3 months later, Isla sends me a different kind of message. This time, it's a photo. She's standing in her tiny apartment, holding a certificate. She completed a certified nursing assistant program at the community college. I remembered how proud you were of being a nurse, the accompanying text reads. I wanted to understand what you found meaningful about helping people. The next message comes a week later. Got a job at Mercy General. Night shift in the ICU. It's hard work, but I love it. I think I'm finally understanding what you tried to teach me about finding purpose and serving others. I stare at that message for a long time. Nursing was my calling, my passion, the thing that defined me before motherhood became my entire identity. The fact that Isla has chosen to follow a similar path feels significant in a way I can't quite articulate. On a warm Tuesday evening in October, almost a year after that devastating Mother's Day post, there's a knock at my door. When I open it, Isla is standing on my porch. She looks good. Healthy. Her hair is shorter, more practical. She's wearing scrubs. She must have come straight from work. But more than her appearance, something in her posture has changed. She's standing straighter, meeting my eyes directly, not fidgeting or looking around nervously. Hi, Mom. Hello, Isla. I was in the area for a conference about patient care techniques. I know I should have called first, but I was hoping we could talk. Just for a few minutes. I study her face, looking for signs of the entitled, manipulative person she'd become. But all I see is a woman who's been through something difficult and emerged stronger. Would you like some coffee? I'd love some. We sit on my porch as the sun sets behind the mountains. Isla tells me about her job, about the patients she's learned to care for, about the satisfaction she finds in making a real difference in people's lives. I had a patient last week, she says, wrapping her hands around her coffee mug. An elderly man who'd been abandoned by his family. He kept asking for his son, but the son never came. It reminded me of something. She looks at me directly. It reminded me that I abandoned you long before you walked away from me. I don't respond immediately. I've learned the value of silence, of letting people say what they need to say without rushing to fill the space. I want you to know that I understand now, she continues. I understand that you didn't reject me that day. You just stopped accepting unacceptable behavior. And what would you do differently now? She thinks about this carefully. I would respect the woman who chose me when no one else would. I would appreciate the sacrifices instead of taking them for granted. I would choose you over people who only wanted to use me for their own purposes. Those are good answers, Isla. But words are easy. Actions are harder. I know. That's why I'm not asking you to forgive me tonight, or even to let me back into your life. I just wanted you to know that I'm becoming someone who might be worthy of your love someday. We sit in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. Finally, Isla stands up. Thank you for the coffee. And for listening. Isla. She turns back. I'm proud of you for becoming a nurse. Her face lights up with a joy I haven't seen in years. Really? Really. It's good work. Important work. The kind of work that makes a difference. She nods, tears glistening in her eyes. Maybe someday I can be half the nurse you were. After she leaves, I sit on my porch until well past midnight. For the first time in over a year, I'm not angry at Isla. I'm not hurt or bitter or resentful. I'm proud, and maybe, just maybe, that's the beginning of something new. Something built on mutual respect instead of obligation, on appreciation instead of entitlement, on choice instead of guilt. I'm not ready to let her back into my life completely. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. But I can see the woman she's becoming, and that woman might be someone worth knowing. For now, that's enough. I have my peaceful life, my meaningful work, my independence. I don't need her to be happy, but someday, when she's proven that she's truly changed, maybe I'll want her to be part of my happiness again. The difference between need and want, I've learned, is everything.